As much
All
as me
right.
and you talk, there probably won't be in much
No, it
dead
probably
space.
won't be much dead area. Higher Calling Podcast, episode 12. Today I got me Mr. Dawson Primes. It's prime time. But Dawson's from Amy, Louisiana. He's been in the Army for 27 years. He came back and now he's Director of Homeland Security Emergency Management for Tangipahoa Parish. And he's chairman of the Oyster Festival in Amy, Louisiana. What's up, Dawson? How's it going, brother?
What's up, brother?
Oh, man,
Man,
all is well,
always
man.
good to see you.
Hey, you as well. It's so much better to be seen and viewed. You know how many times you get viewed, huh?
That's for sure.
Only once, right at the end.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's good to see you, brother. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got here, brother.
Let's see. So born and raised in Amite. Mother worked for an insurance company. Dad was the principal of Westside Middle School in Amite. I was I wouldn't say a typical teenager because I was one that I would always test the limits. I'd test
Typical
everybody's
boy, huh?
patience. Yep, I would. I'd test the limits, test the element, and came to a realization out of high school. I gotta do something better. Uh, Started college, ended up going and joining the army. Went off to basic training. Uh, Really made me grow up. Realized just how spoiled I was at home when you get there, and there's a lot of people that joined the military, then you realize that they weren't as fortunate as you, and they grew up a lot tougher than you, and so it has
Sure.
to, and you have to learn to grow up and get tougher too,
That's
and
right.
that, and I can tell you, so growing up didn't I, it was that typical fat kid. I didn't have a whole lot of self esteem, the whole bit, and it took the army to, and it gave it to you, and
Yeah.
it was pretty life changing.
Yeah. I,
So
I believe that whenever somebody actually realizes that they're not the only one involved, there's other people that you got to take care of, and you can't afford to be selfish in a situation, kind of teaches you to grow up pretty quick.
for sure. And then so uh, graduated college, went to nursing school, and got out. Was a nurse for about 10 years, and then Hurricane Katrina happened. And so, being in the Army National Guard, my brother was at the time was the company first sergeant, and I remember him coming to me at about midnight the day after Hurricane Katrina passed, and he said we were at the armory. Well, it was a 100% call up. We had been there for 2 or 3 days, and he said, "I need you to take pick 5 guys, and you need to get to the Tangipahoa Parish uh, Emergency Operations Center, and you need to just help them out with whatever they need. As far as the National Guard goes, just be there and see what kind of assistance you can give." And so I did that. It took us literally, normally, from here to Franklinton is what, about a 20-minute drive.
Sure.
It took us about 8 hours. We had to cut our way. We had to cut our way all the way down 16 to get. I mean, this was literally as soon as the winds had stopped.
Wow.
And so it took us about 8 hours to get from Franklinton to Amite, and got here to the EOC. Hadn't heard or seen my family in a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, because we had been on a call up, and uh, I went and saw them right after that. I said, "Hey, look, after I dropped everybody off, I said, I want to go check on my family and make sure my house is okay."
Sure.
And I went and checked on Betsy, and she's typical Army wife. She had already driven all the way to Gonzales, found a generator and cans of gas. She had isolated the house off the whole bit, and they were just living, and it was good to see them. And I ended up, God bless me in the fact that the emergency operations center was literally 4 miles from my house. So where I was sent to work out of was right close to home. So anyway, during that event, 1 month led into 2 months, ended up being quite some time, and
It
in
was a
that time
mess.
frame, the parish president came to me and said, "Man, you've done a really good job here." He said, "How would you be interested in coming and doing this full time?" And I can tell you the exact statement that I made. And I said, I tell you what, I said, I love this kind of work. I said, be honest with you, I don't think you can afford me. Uh, and he says,
Straight up.
well, he said, let me, he said, won't you give us a shot at it? And he said, you go talk to the finance guy and, let's see what we can work out. I said, well, I got to talk to my wife and all first. So, after being there for a few months, I went to her and I said, they're offering me a full-time job. I've been doing emergency management and being in charge of the Homeland Security office. And, I said, what do you think about that? She was, as I say, and we prayed about it, talked about it. And so I went and I said, well, let me at least, and Jeff was the finance guy at the time, Jeff McNeely. And so I went to him. Jeff, I will tell you that I love Jeff McNeely. He is a master at, he can whittle you down and make you think that it's a rosy idea. But
he's really good with numbers, I heard,
He's like, look, and he works it out to where he's like, so listen, so you're working now, you work 12-hour shifts and you have to drive all the way to Covington. So that's an hour each way. He said, so now you're going to be 5 minutes from your house. And he said,
you're actually going to be saving money,
We're going to give you a car. We're going to do, it's just all this stuff. So you can afford, so a car's worth this is worth that. And so then it just steadily comes off of the salary. And then you come out there and go, well, maybe I will be okay.
Maybe this is going to be a great idea.
Like, oh yes,
I think he went to school with financials, right? So he's really good working numbers.
And then I go home and tell Betsy, I said, well, okay, I think I'm going to take this job. And she goes, okay, well, how much did they offer? And I told her, and she was like, what? How can we do that? She was, wait a minute.
Surprise.
Those numbers don't work out. And then I had to try to sell my wife on the story that Jeff had told me of how it works out.
Yeah.
And, of course, that was 18 and a half years ago. And it was the best decision I ever made for me and my family and my, well-being and future and the whole bit. So that's where I'm at. That's how I'm here now.
Yeah. So the number seemed small at first, but after you hit it with the Miracle Grow, it grew, huh?
Yeah, just, and I mean, you end up there, they made it right over the years. I went and got my emergency management certification, and I got my professional development series through FEMA, and, they always gave me those bumps there, and then, little 3% raises here and there for cost of living.
I think the Lord said you're faithful with the small things, you'll be rewarded with even greater things. So you're just faithful with the right things,
That's right. And it just ended up working out.
That's awesome. I'm glad it worked out, man.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's the perfect guy job. So you get to deal with all the law enforcement guys, but you're not having to put your life on the line and be a law enforcement guy. You have to deal with all the fire chiefs and the fire departments and trying to help them. But I don't have to get out there and I don't have to fight fire. I get to help people. I get to help those who help other people too. Cool. So I get to support those firemen and those policemen and, those elected officials and all through this position, and not have to deal with a lot of the headaches that they have to deal with.
So you out there with the boys and you help and serve.
That's right.
Yeah. And I know you said you have a servant's heart, so I'm sure that comes in handy.
That's one thing about me is I'm the guy that everything to where I'm going to serve my community, but I'm also the guy at the party that's picking up everybody's plates and cups and throwing it away and, refilling your drink or getting you some more chips or whatever. That's just, I don't know. It's just me. It's in me.
I know. My wife gets on me all the time. She says, you're always busy being Martha. You know what I'm saying? I was like, well, you're too busy being Mary. She says, well, Jesus said Mary's in the right spot. Just remember that.
That's right.
I said, that's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. But, man, I'm glad you got to get on the cast finally, man, and come on, because this is what it's about. The podcast is about having other people like you tell their stories and just hopefully inspire some other people. Hey, we were talking earlier. What funny story in your life? Told me to ask you something about a Tennessee shower.
So
incident.
Here's the funny story is Betsy and I had just got married. And when I tell you, I'm like first year of marriage. And she said, look, we're going to go and visit her cousin and their family up in Tennessee. Now, when I say brand new marriage, I mean we probably were married 9 months at the time. Those people had never met. Go ahead.
When did y'all get married? When you were
We
in the
got married.
service before, or
I got married a year. Let's see. I joined the army in '92. We got married in '96. We just celebrated our 28th wedding anniversary.
congratulations?
Uh, and so the funny story is so I'd never met those people. I didn't know them. They didn't know me. And so we drove all night. It was just kind of one of those things to where, Betsy had Chris Mack. And so we said, we made the bright idea to say, well, we're going to travel at nighttime. That way Christopher will sleep all night. And then by the time we get there in the daytime, and he'll wake up and everything will be better. He didn't close his eyes, drove everybody insane all the way up there. And, just typical 6-year-old, just,
Mm-hmm.
cooped up in a vehicle, but he didn't sleep at all. So we get there and I meet everybody, because we get there and it's like, it had just gotten daylight. And so we pull up, and so we're meeting everybody. Everybody's starting to wake up. We have a cup of coffee, and they have a substantial amount. I think they had four children, and some of those kids had kids, and so then it was just the whole family was in the big house. And I told Betsy, I said, look, I want to go take a shower. I feel grimy. We've been driving all the way up here. I said, I want to go take a shower. So in the room that they put us in upstairs, a little shower. And so, you wouldn't know this about me, but I am kind of bashful around people that I don't know.
Okay.
And so especially it's Betsy's family and I didn't know them. So I'm real kind of bashful. I go upstairs and I go and take all my stuff into the bathroom and I go get in the shower. Well, I'm sitting there taking a shower. Well, I slipped in the shower. And when I slipped in the shower, it was, I'm about 75 pounds lighter than what I was back then. I was a big boy. And so when I slipped, my foot, now we're on the second floor of this house, my foot went through the tub. And the whole tub that had water in it, now all of that water just went to the bottom floor. And and Betsy said all she could remember is hearing me go, they see all the water. And then I go, Betsy. And so she comes upstairs. There's this hole in the tub we've destroyed because all the water is done rushed down to the bottom floor. They're all going. And it's, and it was funny. And so I couldn't have been more embarrassed than I had been in my entire life. I was just like, I couldn't face these people. Like now I got to go and towel off and I have to go down and face these people again, knowing what all this just happened. And it was funny because her cousin Jimmy, who's, he's passed away now. And he was a Green Beret in the Army. And he was home at the time and he said, he's going to be really embarrassed. Don't y'all say anything about it. Don't even address it. And I go down and there's kids and they couldn't help it. I walked into the room and the whole room just erupted in laughter. And it was like, okay, well, this is the deal.
Yeah, that's right.
That was you wanted a funny story. That was a funny story about me.
So you the plumber of the vent, huh?
No,
you rerouted the water.
We went back several years later, and I went into that bathroom, and it was funny because they didn't replace that enclosure and that hole in the floor. They literally spackled over it, and it was in there, and I was like, "Hey, no,
you still saw
it. You find me one on the bottom floor.
You gonna wash your head in the sink, huh?
Lightning's not gonna strike there twice. I'm not getting in that shower again.
That's right. You know where not to go. How are you bashful if you were in the Army?
Man, it was just around. It's just
around strangers
that I didn't know. Now I can quickly make friends,
right?
But I'm usually not the first person to say, "Hey, by the way, I'm Dawson Primes." Let's start. I pick on my assistant all the time, Vicky. We all do because she's the person who gets on an airplane and you can be on an hour and a half flight somewhere, and by the time you get there, she knows every single thing about the person that she sat next to, because she's going to talk them to death and ask them all their questions. Me, I'm going to put on my headphones, turn on my music, and I'm just like, you know, I'm not.
Sure. Uh-huh.
But
Yeah, I've had some long drawn out conversations with a few people on planes
you
too.
know what, I have too, and been blessed by some.
Yeah.
Before, like I met an older couple that was there, and he got a terminal diagnosis and only gave him about 6 months to live, and we had a phenomenal conversation,
Hmm.
and got to share back and forth with each other, and he was a book that he had read, and a book that he had written, and I actually wrote it down, and he was in a movie, and I was literally on my phone and took those notes about them, and I never forgot those people. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm the guy that puts the headphones on, turns on the music, and just closes my eyes during a flight. And
Yeah, you don't never know when those opportunities are available
yeah,
because what was it? It was this year whenever we were coming back from Mexico, and I got met next to a guy, and we were coming back, and I actually got to give him some marriage advice because he was having some trouble with a marriage, and he was kind of an illegal guy, and he's trying to get his papers, and they got married so he can get his papers, and he's having trouble with his wife, and she was giving him, and he's like, yeah, she keeps wanting me not to talk to my mom, and I was just like, what do you mean not talk to your mom? Well, my mom gives me advice, and I tell her this, and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work in marriage. She's like, why not? And I was just like, well, whenever you go away from your family and you get joined together, you kind of gotta take your wife's advice. He's like, so I'm doing wrong, and I was like, kind of. So I got to kind of hip him on a game to that stuff. And if I would have had headphones on, we wouldn't have had a good spiritual conversation.
and me personally, I cannot imagine sharing something that intimate with the guy. And I think that's why God puts people in, and makes those opportunities, because otherwise I couldn't imagine just uh sharing such intimate details about my life with just a random
Complete
stranger.
stranger. Hey, the good
Yeah.
thing is you'll never see him again. So I was listening to I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast one time, and there's this Asian fella, and he was on, I forget what his name is, but he says because he's so meek and because he's Asian, like people will tell him just all kind of random details about his life when he gets in the cars and these taxis, and they never meet him again. He said one guy like told him about this murder he committed and all this stuff, and
Oh
he's
my
just in the
Lord.
car like and it's just like people will just give him all kind of random details, and then they'll just drop him off, and he's got all these crazy stories about stuff that's going
Wow.
on. Pretty interesting.
That is
Yep.
crazy.
What so being a director of Homeland Security, what's some of the challengers or some of the interesting experiences that you've seen?
So man, like I said, now I can say it now, it's after hours, and it to me, it's the greatest job, and it suits me, it fits me to a T. I found my niche. Uh, but it has a lot of challenges. Most of the projects, it's dealing with lots of money, big projects. We uh, the greatest thing about it is that you're able to I'm able to help people in the worst of times.
Mm.
We were actually sharing stories here today with some of the people that had never been in this realm before, that now work for parish government, and was just kind of sharing some stories of things that we were able to pull off during storms. And there was one of the directors was here, and he said I can remember being brand new here in 2016, and he said I'd worked 12 hours for the parish, and he said, and then I went home to go check on my place, and then he said within a few hours, he said my place was all flooded. And he said, I didn't know what I was going to do. He said, my car's flooded. He said, I can't get out of here. I'm not going to be able to get back to work. And he said, it was just some chance. He said that I called him, and I said, hey man, where, I'm going to need you back up here. And he was like, well, I got a problem. He said, Mr. Dawson, he said, I'm flooded in. He said, my
I can't
house,
leave.
everything's flooded. And he said, I told him, I said, what's your address? And he was like, well, this is where I live, but you can't get here. I'm telling you, like, I'm all flooded in. And he said, the next thing I know, here comes an airboat coming down the road. He was like, hey, are you Nate? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, Mr. Dawson sent me, get in.
Uh,
And he said, I brought him back, and then there was a truck waiting for him to get. I said, we're able to, especially after a major event, major hurricane, major flood, anything like that, we're able to pull off a lot of things because luckily I have an administrator, in the parish president that's completely supportive. And so, we're able to pull off really some pretty miraculous things. But we're able to help you. We're the ones that's opening shelters for people. So during the 2016 floods, I mean, we won't even go back and discuss Katrina or Gustav or Hurricane Isaac. And let's just go back to 2016
that was a big one.
when, coordinating, we've had that first flood in March and 5,000 homes flooded. And, fast forward to August, we ended up with over 10,000 homes that were flooded, and being able to open those shelters and provide transportation to those people to those shelters and be able to help them. And our office helps in the recovery part. So we do all the sexy stuff, which is all the response and managing the EOC and making all the things happen to be able to save lives and property and be able to get people
When
to
everybody
safety.
wants to be involved in all the hot and bothered stuff.
Yeah, but then the real work happens when all of that is settled. The water is gone, and now you're left with 10,000 homes that are covered in mold and mud, and everybody's
No lights,
cars are
no
flooded.
clothes, no food, no way to get anywhere.
And you're trying to help them facilitate, and so that's us that's opening the disaster recovery centers to
cool.
Put people in with FEMA and the Small Business Administration and Red
Very
Cross
cool.
and all those people to get them financial assistance and housing assistance and all like that. That's that's some of the best part about this, is being able to just help a whole lot of people. And we have amassed over the past 18 years, I'll put our team up against anybody. We have all these department heads that come in and serve other roles than what they normally are in, and everybody's taking ownership of it. And we have been able to put a team together to where now, when Hurricane Laura happened, when it decided to go over to the southwest part of the state, it hit Cameron and Calcasieu Parish, and it devastated Lake Charles. And it was it's next when the director of Homeland Security and the governor call and say, hey, we need your help. And I'm like, wait a minute, you need my help? And they were like, yeah, we need you to say, we would really like for you to go over to Lake Charles and try to right this ship, because there's just some problems on it. And we, they're devastated, and I think they could use some help. And so, go over there and, basically go in, and you're not taking over anything, because they got a director, a very experienced one, but we were able to go in and be able to be that. It's not emotional for us. It's not our immediate community.
Not your family.
Our families aren't affected.
Right.
And be able to say, look, if won't you let me do this for you? I can do this, and let me put this into place for you. And let's start putting these things. And they're like, yeah, great idea. Let's do that. And
you tighten up the tie. It's business time. Let's get to work.
Yeah. So, and being able to help them, and it's great, because that always comes back to you, because whenever we get devastated in Ida, those same people that you help are on the phone going, hey man, if you need us, we're on our way. We're in our vehicles. You just tell us, and we're going. And so that we're able to put together a team to be able to do that now, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah, because Lake Charles, they got hit with 2 back-to-back hurricanes.
Dude, they got hit with like 4, if you remember. So they ended up with
Laura, I know they had 2 big ones,
and then it was Delta and Zeta. That was a year, if you remember, we went through the entire alphabet, and then they started on the Greek alphabet after that. And it's like, geez, it's like they just couldn't catch a break for a while. That whole Southwest region took a beating.
I'm kind of glad I don't live south of the lake anymore, because I used to take a beating with all them hurricanes too. Up here north of the lake, we really don't catch them like talking about.
I mean, we got our butt kicked pretty good with Ida, but it's at least there you don't have to deal with the
The
um,
water.
the storm surge that's coming in. But I mean, we got, if you remember, I mean, of course you do, but in Ida, it was, I mean, we had 100-mile-per-hour sustained winds in the parish, and we had trees down
I
everywhere
was
and
down. I
tornadoes
was down.
everywhere,
I was
and it
down
was
for
just, it was a
days at a
mess.
time. Yeah.
And I can remember when we had our congressmen and senators from the federal government came in, and they were like, well, show us where the damage is, you know, where's the worst spots. And I can remember
Everywhere.
the best statement came from the parish president when he says, look, he said, I can take you 2 miles, or he says, I can take you 60 miles. He said, and it's the same. He
Yeah.
said, once you've been 2 miles, you've seen the whole place. It all looks like this. It's all bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because I was up there in Kentwood, and man, we got nonstop trees up there the whole time. So it's just,
no doubt.
as soon as a big breeze comes through, trees start snap open up there.
But we live in a pretty great community too. We see a lot of places where there's looting and there's bad stuff, but and that's the stuff that seems like the media likes to focus on is the negative. But man, what you don't see is the local churches and just the local communities that go and say, okay, you know what? I don't have any power, so I'm going to cook everything that's in my freezer. And then they start bringing it to the police departments, the fire departments, to the emergency operations center. They go bringing it to the shelters, and they, just people are just good, and
Yeah.
it
They don't
brings
show
out the
they
good in people, and you will see people that we had people that come in after storms, and they've driven from North Carolina, or they've driven from somewhere, and they just have a trailer load full of cans of gasoline and some generators that they bought, and just whatever and cases of water, and they're like, hey, where would serve
Sure.
this the best? And you're like, man, it's really heartwarming to see those people that want to help. And
Yeah, whenever
we
the community comes together, but they'll never get the publicity like mayhem and chaos. Come out there like Bobby Joe with a cigarette in his mouth talking about the alien craft coming in.
Yeah, we always say that if you go back to Katrina and our job, and I don't want I don't want to focus on all these old storms. All you saw on the media was the negative. Those people that were at the Superdome, and the whole, hey, Mr. President, where's FEMA, and all the negative surrounding that. But it never got the publicity that Louisiana pulled off the largest evacuation in United States history. They managed to evacuate 2.5 million people. Now there were still 25,000 people that got left behind, and and there was a lot of there's definitely lessons learned there. But let's talk about that Louisiana was able to pull off evacuating 2.5 million people that had never
Yeah.
been done before. So
Well, that's everything that went right. They want to talk about everything that went wrong and the Superdome roof caving in and all the dead bodies everywhere. So, but you're 100% right. Like, just for instance, like that Hawk 2 girl, like she did that video, whatever, that got millions of views. And then after that, she says, I'm going to use my 15 minutes of fame to promote this. And she does like animal shelter care and stuff like that. Those videos ain't going 8 million. You know what I mean? Her
right,
doing
no,
animal
nobody's
shelter
wanting to
care.
see all that.
Right. They want to see
They
the,
want to
they
catch
want to see the,
drunk girl making a fool of herself.
they want to see the drama. That's
Yeah,
what
for
draws
sure.
it. What about I know you probably in contact with the governor and assistant governor during all this crisis. Any other big names come to the thing that you've met up with before?
So I've actually got to meet Donald Trump once. I've actually the governor from our past governor, John Bell Edwards, was from Tangipahoa Parish, was from Amite, and I mean, we've known that the Edwards family for years, and
Sure.
so I'd say meet a governor, but I've actually first governor I ever met was Kathleen Blanco,
Okay.
and I can tell
That's the
you that
helmet
I
law
was
lady.
say again.
The helmet law lady. She made
No,
every. Oh, she
no,
was
that was
against the
Mike
helmet.
Foster was that took away the helmets, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought it
Yeah,
was. I
Mike
thought it was
Foster was
Blanco.
the guy that said, "Hey, did away with the at the time when he was governor, because he was a motorcycle guy and he didn't
Yeah.
like riding with a helmet, and he did away with
No,
the
but I'm just
requirement."
saying Blanco required everybody to wear the helmets.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, and I can tell you that's a kind of funny story in itself, a little bit. is so Washington Parish got devastated in Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
In specific, Bogalusa, and so they weren't getting the attention that everybody else was getting, and that was because their communications was completely out. And so they nobody knew what was going on in Washington Parish. And so finally, through ham radio, the ham radio operators in Washington Parish were able to contact the ham radio operators that were working here at the Tangipahoa Parish government building, and basically laid out, here's the problem that's going on, and what Bogalusa is devastated. We have no communication, we have no food, no water, no nothing. This is all these problems. And so those guys came with that note that brought it to the parish president. The parish president came to me, and I'm a green suiter at the time. I'm here on behalf of the National Guard, and he said, "Here, I need you to take this. I need you to take this message, and I want you to deliver it to the state director. This is his name, and you only hand this letter to him, and to make sure that it gets where it's got to go."
Special
Okay, great.
operation.
And so get in our Humvee with two other soldiers, and so they're going to drive me. And so we drive all the way to Baton Rouge in the middle of the night, and it was a very intimidating place for somebody who has never been there. You pull up to the state EOC, and there's literally Blackhawks on both sides of the entryway with the blades going, and there's a lot of this bustling activity. And you go in, and you're talking about probably a 20,000 square foot EOC room that's filled full of hundreds of people, and it's the who's who in state government and the whole bit.
Wow.
Well, at the time, I had never met them, and so I'm going, and it's very intimidating. And they were like, "Well, who are you here to see?" And I said, "I need to go, and I got a message that I got to deliver from Tangipahoa Parish for Washington Parish, and I got to deliver it to this person." And they said, "Okay, well, go." They're in the EOC. So I go through and I walk into that main room with all the people, and it was extremely intimidating. Luckily, I end up seeing some National Guard buddies of mine, and one in particular is our CAO now, Joe Thomas. And I saw him, and I'm like, "Oh God, friendly face, somebody I know." And I'm like, "Hey, I got to get this message to, the director." And he was like, "Look, that's him. He's right there. Go and hand that to him right over there." And I was like, "Man, thanks so much. Appreciate it." And so, and I go, well, while I was standing there, I remember this lady, and this lady was like, "Excuse me, baby," because I was standing in the aisleway, and I was blocking the way, and I turned around, and it's Governor Blanco. And and I was like, "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry," and then so and her and her entourage go through, and the whole bit. So first governor I ever met, and then I ended up through other events, ended up having a close relationship with just with work wise is with Bobby Jindal, and so
cool.
yeah, I've met every governor from Blanco to now. So
Awesome.
got to meet Donald Trump. I've got several congressmen and senators, and
So who do you think was the best governor so far that you've met?
Never going to get me to answer that question. Thanks.
Yeah. not in your position, huh?
I'll tell you, like, you're crazy if you think I'm answering that question.
That was a very good answer. What is that? Is that equivalent to I plead the Fifth Amendment on this situation?
That's just politics. Look,
I like what you said. I asked you the other day. I said, what about politics? I don't get into politics. I just work for politics. That's a very good answer. What was Trump? What was Trump like when you met him?
Taller than I expected.
Really?
That's a very large. Like it was a very, very large man.
He's like 6'3" or something, huh?
I can't move my screen, but I actually have a signed picture from him in my office. And he was like, "Thanks for all you do," and so I got to meet him, and so that was very interesting. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's around 6'6" or so. He's taller than I was, just a big tall guy.
They said somebody said the other day how much he weighs or whatever, and I mean, so he's a 300-pound man, you know what I mean, and he's a big man for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What's your greatest learning experience through all of this stuff so far?
Biggest learning experience is don't get full of yourself. The biggest thing is to stay humble, I think, and realize that you know we're all here to serve others. Others are not here to serve us. And so the more you can stay humble, titles come and go. And I think that I think you do the greatest good in the amount of time that you're put here, and try to make as big an impact as you can.
Yeah, that's a good thing right there. And it said Jordan Peterson. I'm pretty big on him. You've heard of him?
Hmm.
He always talks about what our job in society is to do the greatest good in our society that we can do. And like, what else is there? Because everybody looks for what feels good and what's fast, and it's like, but no, your job is to do the best job you can, and that's not going to help you out. That's going to help everybody around you out. And if I do that, it's going to help everybody around me. If you do that, helps everybody. And if we all collectively do that, the rising tide is going to raise all boats. And it's just
You
like what.
you may not can affect change in the world,
Mhm.
but I can change my immediate surroundings. I can
Sure.
I can affect my household. I can
Mhm.
affect my job. I can affect where I work and the people that I come in contact with. And if
Sure.
everybody takes that approach, instead of trying to look and saying, well, I got to do this to change the world, if you just change you, change your family, and do
Yeah.
everything for the good and do the best you can in where you're at, I think that if everybody would do that, it would change the world.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's another thing Peterson said one time. He says, they got a lot of people. Let's just say there's a lot of protesters right now. People that protest, elections. People that protest this and all this stuff. And it's like, you got a lot of people. They go through school, and it's just like whether they get indoctrinated through school, whether they get indoctrinated at the house, whatever it is, but they're out there and they're trying to tell everybody how to live the world. How can they change the world? And that's what he said. He says, if you just go ahead and you change your family, then you change your community, and then you change your state level, then you could change your nation. Then you could talk about how to change the world. But first, balance your checkbook. Listen, learn, and do the best job you can in your family before you out there go try and change the world. And he said
Yeah,
that
and I
everything.
think that there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks that like to say,
Mhm.
well, they should be doing things this way, and you know, um, Robbie Miller said it best one time when I think he said he was talking to one of his children, and he was like, "Look," he said, "you can protest, you can do this, and you know." All that is white noise. He says, you really want to make change, then make something of yourself and go be that change. Go into, if it's this organization that you don't like, then go and work yourself up and get in that organization and change it from the inside out. And then you've done something. But standing around an armchair quarterback and how everybody else that's trying to do it is, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, I
Um,
heard so.
I tell people all the time too, since you brought up protests and stuff, it's me and my buddy John Dunnington that works here at Parish Government too. We were talking one day, and I said, sometimes I feel bad in the fact that um I don't understand people that are so passionate about, whether, I don't care if it's pro-Trump, anti-Trump, Black Lives Matter, anti-Democrat, anti-Republican. All these, there's these groups of people, and it really doesn't matter. But they're so passionate that they're willing to just and I'm just not.
Yeah.
Like when you said, "Are you into politics?" I'm not. Like I'm gonna watch. I'll watch the. I watch certain races. Do I think it's important who the president is? Yes,
Mhm.
but I'm going to. I'm more. I'm gonna watch that race like I watch a football game. Do I want my LSU Tigers to win? Yes, I do. But
Sure.
if they don't and they get beat, guess what? I'm still going to work tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I'm more concerned with the mayor's race of the town I live in, and the parish
Sure.
president's race in which I
Yeah.
reside, the state in which I reside, and so forth. But all these people who just that protest and seem like they're just super way more passionate than I am about a lot of things.
Well, and I think there's a lot of it, and this is what affects me. It's like you don't like what's going on. It's like, why don't you see what you can do over here to fix it over here? And
That's
there's a
right.
quote, and I can't remember who said it, whatever it says. Those who think it foolish to study politics will be ruled by those fools that do study
That's right.
politics. And it's because kind of like if we don't pay attention to stuff and we don't try to change it, it's kind of like, and we sweep it under the rug, there's going to be somebody over there that's going to do it. And they're like, I don't know what they're doing over there.
And then history
'Cause-
will definitely repeat itself if you don't learn from it.
which is why we can't tear down statues all the
Mm.
time and just burn pages out the history book, because this stuff has all happened before. Like,
Yeah.
we've seen this stuff happen. And I'm just like, didn't y'all read about this in history class? Or y'all
Mhm.
skipped that day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to help people find purpose out there. What would you tell the 18, 25-year-olds out there that are looking to find their way? What would be your advice for
Um, 18 to 25-year-olds now.
them?
So I have a 24-year-old and I have a 17-year-old, and I'll say what I tell them is, one, we limit yourself on social media. Limit the video games, limit the social media. Don't live your life on social media. Be careful what you put on it. It has ramifications far beyond that will never go away. I can tell you now, Chad, that I am
You glad they didn't have
I
social
couldn't be
media back in the
happier that
day?
they did not have cell phones and Facebook and Instagram and all of that. When I was in high school and college, I probably would not be allowed to have the job that I have.
That's right.
You know, look, and a lot of time people don't realize that. And I
Yeah,
think that one is people put too much of their business out there. I think social media should
sure.
be fun. I want to see people's vacations. I don't it shouldn't be a platform for all your drama
Politics. Yeah,
and all of that. Nobody wants to see all that. I want to see pictures of your dog and you having fun at the
yeah,
pool and whatever,
right.
and family vacations and things, and memories pop up. And
God,
I
yes.
love that.
Hmm.
The other thing is the this online generation is they get so involved in video games, and that ends up taking up. And I have to share this with I share this with Caleb, that I said, there is a difference. Even though you were talking to those people online and he's got his headset on and they're talking and they're playing games together and doing that, I said there is no substitute for you going to their house and sitting on their
Interaction.
couch and you're just talking, or sitting around a campfire. And those are some of my fondest memories of my friends and us all just getting together, and
I
we
used
would
to
just
love
be
those get
under the
togethers.
bridge, but burning a campfire and just everybody just kind of sitting around talking. And I just
Yep.
and I really wish that those 18 to 25-year-olds would understand that personal interaction is super important, and you need to fine tune that versus fine tuning this.
Yeah.
Um,
Hand eye coordination is up, but social skills are way down.
Lay
It's
down.
like, dude, I'll scare the hell out of people, Dawson, because one of my pet peeves is these things right here are people's comfort zones. And we're like, somebody, a younger person especially, maybe teenagers and stuff, when they see somebody coming, they immediately pick up their phone and they do like this. And I'll see them and I walk by them, they're like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh. And that's just me. I'm gonna get you to talk. It might be, oh crap, or you scared me or something like that, but I'm gonna get you to
Mm-hmm.
talk. And I was
Right.
like, hey, how you doing? How's your day going? Everything good? How your mama now? And it's just like,
Uh,
people don't have that anymore.
yeah, and so and my family knows that's a big pet peeve, and sometimes I choose to stand my ground and I guess die on that hill or whatever. But my biggest pet peeve is if we're in a restaurant and
Mhm.
even though we're finished eating, but if this is a privilege, that we got to go to this restaurant and we're sitting
Sure.
around. We may have already eaten, but you want really set me off is whenever you look around and you see that. And a lot of people, it's my pet peeve is when people pull out their cell phones. And I'll look at my boys and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, and they'll put their phones up. And I'm like, dude, let's talk. We're going to go back home here in just a little bit. And then you
Right.
can go to your room, get back on your phone. But while we're in this restaurant, let's socialize. Let's talk about things. Let's be a family.
Oh
And
yeah.
you see that in the family units now. Go to a restaurant and just happen to look around, and you will see mom and
Everybody's on
dad
their
and
phone.
kids and everybody's just sitting there. They're not talking to each other. They're just all sitting there searching the phone. They can be doing that at home. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that you come to a restaurant and do that. It's
And
just,
the bad thing is, a lot of kids do that stuff. They'll be all in the same room together. And I mean, I walked in my son's room, and they're all in there in the same room, just like we're talking about. Nobody's talking. They're all just they're looking at Instagram, and they're looking at videos of what everybody else is doing. And I'm just like, why y'all aren't doing it? Why aren't
and
y'all
look,
talking?
well, I'm guilty. I will spend a lot of time, on my phone doing that because but I think there's a time and a place for everything. If I don't have
Sure.
anything going on, then I'll choose to do that.
Yeah, a little bit of
The only other
entertainment's
things
not
that I
bad.
would say, the only other thing that I would say is uh, for 18 to 25-year-olds is to live your life now, even if you have no intention of ever running for public office.
Mm-hmm.
Live your life like you are going to run for public office later on, and you don't want, you know, and of course we've all done crazy stuff. We've all done things that we're not proud of. We all lived,
Mm-hmm.
we've all lived that life. We came out on the other side, and it would be nice if they didn't have to. If you didn't have to sit there, man. Hope nobody ever brings that up. Hope nobody ever,
Right.
and just kind of be that person and live your life that way.
Yeah. Just try not to embarrass yourself out there on social media.
Will they live? Will
Oh
they listen and live that way? No,
no.
because I can remember, like, I quote my dad now at 52 years old, and my dad passed away when I was 15 years old, and I remember thinking back then it was just like any other teenage boy. My parents don't know anything, even though my dad was the principal of a school and was a
Mm-hmm.
highly educated man, and my mom, uh, I didn't think they knew anything. And now you go back and those life lessons, that stuff that he would say, I can still remember now, and they resonate with me now. But you can try to tell them to your kids now, and they're like, it's just, it's just corny stuff that your parents are saying.
I think it was Huckleberry Finn. He says, whenever I was 13 years old, my daddy was the stupidest man on the planet. I can't believe how he made it that far and nobody killed him, and how he was able to survive. And he said, when I became 18 years old, he said, I was amazed by the amount of knowledge he gained in those 5 short years. You know, but it's
That's
just like
right.
we were talking about this earlier. My son, he's 18 now, and he's got my namesake. And this whole time, I've been asking my wife, I said, why did they do this to me? Why did they try to bring the Jesus out of me? Why did they try to, they said, they're just trying to test you. They're looking for the chinks in your armor. And all the
Hmm.
time, my son would be like, Daddy, I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to do this. I could do it better. I could do this. And like the past couple of weeks or whatever, he's kind of been coming around, and he's like, yeah, life's too short, Daddy. You can't keep doing all this stuff. I can't keep doing that. I got to do this. I gotta get right with the Lord. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you, son. You know what I mean? And just
Hmm.
just to watch him kind of evolve and just get there. And I was just like, and I kind of think God waits the same thing for us. Is like, I see you, son. I know you're going to be great, but I'm just waiting for you to
One
come
day,
around.
one day.
He's
Good
waiting
Lord,
for me
one
to
day.
turn that corner. He's waiting for me to turn that corner, Dawson.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got any people that you look up to in government that you try to mimic or influence you, or what, in your
you
job?
know and I'll probably end up sharing this on my Facebook page, and when he sees it, it's gonna he's probably gonna be mad because he's a super humble guy. But I tell you who I look up to more than any person in this world right now is Chippy Fitz. um
I love
I
Papa
love him,
Chip.
and
Yeah.
he's a great human being, and he has done more to change who I am now, uh, because you know and he and I can remember one time, like I always respected what he thought about me. And, you know, he and I got into it. And this has been several years ago. It's been like a long time ago, probably about 8 years, 7 or 8 years ago. And he came to me and kind of gave me the what for. And it was as a friend, as a pissed off friend, as a pastor, as a, kind of the whole thing. And it was like,
Big old birthday cake all wrapped up.
and that was like, oh, and I took everything that he said. And I can tell you that he probably doesn't know this, but it changed a lot about me that day. Took a lot of the arrogance away, took a lot of the, and just really uh really humbled me. And try to emulate that again. And I he's done a lot for me. Chippy, I know when you watch this, you're going to be super mad at me for even bringing any of this up, but love you, bud. Gotta say
Yeah.
it. The other, my brother Chris was always a great man. My brother ended up being the command sergeant major for our battalion. And I always looked up to him. He stepped in when my brother died. I mean, when my father died when I was 15, and we didn't get along that great growing up, and we kind of realized that when Dad died, that all of that was foolish and senseless. And then and we're pretty tight now. And my brother has been he is the modern day Job. I could sit there and we could do a whole podcast on him. He's really been through it. We were deployed to Afghanistan together.
Oh, really?
And some bad stuff happened to me in Afghanistan, bad stuff happened to him in Afghanistan. And Chris has he lost his leg, had to have his leg taken off back in 2014, and
Wow.
he's in a wheelchair. And he went through a just a phase, and it's just kind of like one thing after another just happened to him.
Right.
And to see that he's still hanging on, and he's still he's been through some really dark times, really been. And the fact that he still manages to just go forward when a lot of people would have gave up a long time ago. So
Still got a PMA, huh?
Yeah,
that's good, man. That's wonderful, man. Because and the funny thing about life is going to beat you down, and stuff's going to happen that you don't expect, and that's why you got to have the Lord in your life, and you got to have faith in something, because unforeseen stuff is going to happen, man. I'd love to get y'all both on here to talk about some Afghanistan stories, man. That'd be fun.
I don't want to ever pass this point up. Is I don't none of us give enough credit to our wives. I said the one thing is we can get super full of ourselves a lot. I'm this is my position at work, and I deal with these people and this, that, and the other. And you go off to war, and this person may see you as a hero. You get home, you still the husband that you still need to pick your shoes up off this floor, and that
Yeah.
you still
Get the toilet seat down, Dawson.
Thing was is I would pop off a few times, and Betsy was like, I don't know who you think you're talking to. It's not this chick. So you better just dial it back. And that's always the thing is your kids and your wife will humble you faster than anybody, because at home you still dad, and you still this aggravating husband that still got chores to do. So
yeah, I like what you said earlier about how whenever you were off and you were running around for the military, you're doing all of this stuff, and you come back to the house, make sure the family's all right. Betty's got it all squared away. She's got the generator, she's got the gas, everything's all set up. And same thing with me.
I was super impressed by her. Like literally, I was like, when I pulled up to the house and all these trees are down in the yard and the whole bit, and I hear a generator running, and I'm like, we don't own a generator. Like I wasn't the emergency manager. I wasn't the emergency preparedness guy back then. It's like I'm just a National Guard guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, we don't own a generator. Yeah. And you go up in the thing, and we didn't have a window unit. And you go in the thing where she had driven and and drove all the way trying to find generators, but they were all sold out. And she said that she ended up finding one where a guy was like literally had pulled up with an 18-wheeler and was like rolling his banner out that said generators for sale. And she whipped in there and she was like, give me two. And then she bought a window unit, and she hung some military wool blankets to separate the rooms off and put the window unit in there. And they were just, living and, just taking care of business. And that's just kind of, that's the life of an Army wife. And I was pretty proud of it, because the fact that she was able to like, hey, we don't have any help and it's just me. And I'm gonna do what I got to do to take care of these
Got babies to take care of. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's like I spend a lot of time away from the house too, and being offshore, I'm in the middle of the ocean out there, and my wife's got everything taken care of, and I come back in town, and she'll fuss at me. She's like, "You keep leaving the toilet seat up," and I'm like, "Okay," and I try to tell the kids and her what to do, and she's like, "You can't just sit there and talk to us like we're a bunch of hands. We are not your employees out in the work field." And I was like, "Oh, yes, dear."
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with a guy when I was up in Evansville, Indiana one time, old operator Mr. Bob, and Mr. Bob was leaving one day, and I think I told this story in the podcast before, but Mr. Bob was leaving. He said, "I'm cutting out early, Chad. You need anything?" I said, "Where you going, Bob?" He's like, "Oh, it's my anniversary tonight." I said, "How many years?" He said, 50. I says, "Man," I said, "That's amazing. Congratulations. What's the secret to being married for 50 years? He said, "Always get the last word in any argument." I was like, "Really? What's that?" He said, "Yes, dear."
That's right.
I was like, that checks out. That checks out, Bob.
Yeah. Like when I fuss at my kids and I fussing out there, I said, understand that. And it like, oh, you're always fussing at me. And I said, understand that at 52 years old, don't think that I ever want to be mad or I am all about peace. I want what's peaceful and what will end the argument and not be mad and the whole. So don't think, but I still have the job of being a parent at the end of the day. So I still got to tell you when things are right or wrong. Know that I don't want to be that way. I want you to just do what you're supposed to do so I can be at peace.
Well, I gotta 100%. I gotta fight enough people out there in the world. I don't need to come in my house and fight everybody else.
For sure.
Tell me about the Oyster Festival.
So, man, I've been on the Oyster Festival now since they asked. Like, I was very humbled by that, and I was like, why are you calling me? Because the chairman at the time, Scott Gay, called me and said, "Man," he said, "would you be interested in being the grand marshal of the Amy Oyster Festival for our upcoming festival?" And I'm like, or is there something like there's got to be something? You must be way down the list. Well, you just can't, and he was like, "We're very proud of you. You saw I just come back from a year-long deployment to Kuwait and that whole thing, and and like I said, I try to be a humble guy. And I just couldn't imagine. I was like, I don't know why you would want me to do that, but certainly I agreed to do it. I got a float and I got to go out with my wife and boys, and we threw party poppers and threw beads and the whole bit, and I had a great time. And I said, and I grew up in the Amy Oyster Festival. It's a wonderful organization, and right after that festival and all, some of my friends that were on the board called and said, would you be interested in serving on our board with us? And I said, let me come to a meeting, and so I went to one of their meetings, and I am a sucker if there ever was one. We end up,
serving the community, man.
Okay, and they voted and said, okay, yeah, he wants to be on the board, and they voted me on the board. And
good thing they wasn't asking if anybody wanted to write a check too, huh? You'd be right there signing the check, huh?
Couple of years ago, 2 years ago, they voted me as the chairman, and so I've been the chairman for 2 years, and it's one of those things too. It's it's like serving. It's a great party. We put on a great show on the weekend. It's a great event. I'll give it the plug. It's always the third weekend of March. That's our statement. So
That's right.
but it's bands all weekend, and it's rooted in. I'm an Amite guy. I've lived in Amite. I'm
Sure.
born and raised here, and it's a part of Amite as anything else. You got the chili cook-off on Friday. You got the bands. You got the whole thing. I was super proud with our group. We were able to make enough money to put a down payment on and be able to. We bought the old DMV here
I
in
was going to
Amite,
ask you about that.
and we put a lot of thought into what the name of that was going to be. And
Mhm.
everybody used to refer in the oyster industry. They used to call them the oyster houses.
Mhm.
They used to have the oyster houses out west of town, and
Right.
so that's what we named our building. And we've got the big logo on the front that says the
The
oyster
Oyster
house.
House.
And
That's
so
awesome.
we had the community really came together, and we had Mr. Buck Cephalou was moving buildings in his business, and said, hey, we've got an 18-foot conference table and 22 solid oak chairs that we'd like to donate for your building.
Wonderful.
And I mean, that's something that costs you $10,000 now if you
Oh,
bought
yeah.
a solid oak table with all those chairs a little bit. And other people donated. One of the guys on our board, Brandon Voigt, he donated appliances for the kitchen in it, and everybody donated their time, and we spent a year of just elbow grease of ourselves and stripped that place down, and we redid all the electrical, and we've put this board together, and people have come and gone, but what we've got now is it's really something special.
Yeah.
Everybody's got ownership. We've got great treasurer, and we got very good accounting, and we're just accountable for all of our money now, and
Yeah.
we're doing good things with that money and trying to do community projects with it. And but yeah, we managed to put on a pretty good show, and we've got great royalty again this year. We always do, and those that King and Pearl and all of our queens that have the pageant, they represent us all year long, and it's a blessing to be a part of it, because it's a great organization.
And I mean, I see you out there taking pride. Everybody's got the inner liners with the oysters, and it matches the socks with the oysters. And
No,
for the
if you
life
look
of
at my
me,
closet, it's ridiculous. So, uh,
oyster every stuff, huh?
and it's like, and a lot of them are gifts. A lot of them I bought,
Yeah.
and it's just usually anything that's got an oyster. And it's if you go in our living room, we've got there's a lot of oyster stuff, but I've got more oyster clothes and socks and ties and jackets and shirts
And for
it's
the life of me, whenever I got to a meet, I couldn't figure out. I was like, Oyster Festival. Where the heck are they getting oysters from?
so
Like, there's
want to
no
say
water,
I'll tell you a quick little snippet about that, and I'll tell you another. You know me, I always got a funny story.
I
So
love it, man.
another quick funny story, but so Amite used to house the two largest the oyster producers, or if you call it the plant where they brought all the oysters to, and
Oyster houses.
they got shut the oyster houses. That the two largest ones in the United States.
So, did they
And so,
produce oysters for the whole United States right here in Amite, Louisiana?
well, I mean, there's oysters come from everywhere, anywhere along the
Yeah, yeah.
coastline.
But
But
I'm
they
just
were
saying
the
they
two
shucked them.
largest. They were the two largest plants that produce and shucked and packaged processing plants, packaging plants, and in the United States at the time. And just one thing led to another thing. BP oil spill did a lot to do away with that. But even before then, it just started shifting around. And but back in 1976, they wanted to showcase that, so we started out, and our official with the IRS, our official name is Amite Oyster Day Incorporated, because it was just a one-day event. It was in the courthouse parking lot, and they would have a couple of bands, and they would kind of celebrate the oyster industry, and because of what it brought to Amite and the whole bit.
What year frame was that about?
1976 is when it started. Was the
76
first
when it started? Okay.
is when the Amite Oyster Day Incorporated started.
Okay.
Now, if you're asking me the whole history of when all of that took place, leading up to that thing, if it was in 50s, 60s, 70s, but it was all, I mean, even into
Yeah.
the 90s, whenever I was, uh, so, my quick funny story is, I've been in Afghanistan, and if you saw in my notes, I send me some things about you. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I went to Afghanistan, I can tell you that Afghanistan changed my life. It was not what I was expecting. It was way worse than I ever expected it to be. There was a lot of circumstances that changed who I am. If you follow me on Facebook, I even, like on some, on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, it's like, there's and I can't talk about it in depth too bad because I'll get very emotional about it.
I bet. I
That
bet
year,
you met a lot of
that
brothers out there.
made a lot of brothers, lost some brothers, but
Sure.
it really changed who I was. You know, I'll even say sometimes, I left a part of me in that sand,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I've spent 20 years trying to get all of those pieces back, and but some of
Sure.
it's, I mean, and I consider myself a grown man when I went. I was what, 30 years old.
Yeah.
At the time, 30, 32, something like that. Uh, and I think about those. We had kids right out of, and I say kids, but we had guys right out of basic training, right out of high school. I'm talking 18-year-old guys
They,
that go straight from basic training and AIT to
straight into
deploying.
action. Yeah.
And man, when those, I know how much that deployment changed me as a person, as a man, I
Sure.
mean, it's what you likes, what you dislikes, what you're, just it just changed so much. But think about that 18-year-old, that 19-year-old
Oh,
that
they
hadn't
probably had.
really experienced life when that
Yeah.
when that mom sent that 18-year-old off.
Yeah.
She sent her kid off,
A
and
baby.
he came back a grown man
Absolutely.
with
And I mean, I'm
life
sure.
experiences that he probably wished that he hadn't had. And, I mean, and people just don't understand that. And, um, people don't, and a lot of, enough respect, let me say it that way,
Mhm.
enough respect is not given to, National Guard soldiers. And I'll tell you, and the reason why I say that is, you can be, Chad Hillstrom that works for Innovative Plant Solutions, and you're in the National Guard. You get
Mhm.
called up, you go to Afghanistan, you have to do all the things of what that entails as your job, and what you have to do as a soldier to protect you and your other fellow soldiers.
Yep.
And how that changes you as a person, and the experiences that you experience while you're there. Well, then when that's over with and your deployment's over with, we're versus active duty soldiers that signed up for that. They go from that deployment, then they go back to their base, they retool a little bit, they go back to training, and then they may go again in a year from a year from now. They
Mhm.
may go again in a year versus, and so and uh, those things are, there's good and bad to all of that. But where the National Guard guys is, it's like I said. So Chad Hillstrom that works for Innovative Plant Solutions now, in a
Mhm.
year after doing all of what you had to do, you go back to Innovative Plant Solutions.
Mhm.
You come home 30 days later, you're back at work. They're expecting Chad, the fun loving guy that was just here,
But
a
everything
year
changed.
ago, and you come back and you're not that same person.
Right.
You may not be as happy. You may not be as jovial. You may not, uh, you as engaged, those kind of things, because
Do you,
and it all takes time, and they don't realize that. So National Guard guys, it's kind of like you get that training and you want to use it. And I can tell you that, in the Army, the worst thing, it seems like one of the worst things is a guy who hasn't been deployed.
Mhm.
Everybody sees, especially because of the wars that we've all been through, you're hard pressed to find a soldier that hasn't, been to war now, except for the new ones, and they all aspire to be like the ones that did.
They want to go
And
out and get some.
yeah, you want to get out and get some until you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody wants to, we always like to say everybody wants to be Rambo till it's time to do Rambo shit.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you that, and I've told this story, I've probably told you before, and, in our, back porch talks before, is everybody wants to be that tough guy, wants to be the Army guy, and wants to go to war until
Yeah.
the first bullet flies your way, and you go, you know what?
I want to go back
I
home.
miss my wife and I miss my kids and I want to go home.
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
enough of this already,
Uh-huh.
and that's where war is different, and it changes people, because you go into it thinking one way, and you also thinking that you want to be this person, and I'm this tough guy. And I can tell you some of the hardest I ever cried in my whole life. The very first time in my entire existence on this planet of being gone for Christmas was when I was in Afghanistan. I
Yeah.
had never been away. So no matter, even when I went to basic training, when I went to, and all the things that I had done, and our family was big on Christmas. You
Sure.
always get together as a family unit on Christmas Eve and the whole bit. Well, I'd been there since, I guess, May. So we got there in May, and I remember me and my brother stayed up till like 2 a.m, or we made ourselves be up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go call home. And you had to go stand back in those days. It wasn't like it is now. I mean, this was 20 years ago. Longer than that. God dog, it's been a long time. But so
Sure.
but in 2003, it wasn't like it is now. And so back then you had to go and stand in line to use these military phones. And so there'd been a lot of, I guess, water under the bridge in my time from May to December. And so I'm hardened, and I'm thinking, well, you don't think about family that much, because you really
You got to
can't
turn it
focus too
off.
much on it, because you
Sure.
got a job to do, and you can't
Right.
spend your time going, oh, I miss everything about home. And I can tell you that I was sad because I wasn't going to be home for Christmas for the first time in my whole life. And me and Chris stood in that line. Well, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional telling this story, but man, my son answered the phone, and he would have been 6, I guess, at the time. And he answered the phone, and I remember him saying, "Oh, hey, Dad, like Merry Christmas." He says, "I miss you so much." Good Lord. The floodgates came open, and then
Sure.
my wife gets on the phone, then my mom gets on the phone, and then it's like holy shit!
I can't
I'm
let
a
the boys
wreck.
see me cry.
Like, dude, I'm a wreck, and I
Right.
never will forget that feeling. And I remember getting
Sure.
off the phone and turning it over to my brother so he could basically do the same thing with his kids and his wife and mom.
And you
And the
got to
whole
get the
bit.
frog out your throat.
It was a 6-mile walk. Our base was 6 miles of a circle. So if you started at one point and walked the perimeter, it was 6 miles. I walked that from 2 a.m. to about 10 a.m. Like, walked it all night. And I'd stop along the way and I'd cry a little bit, and just try to get myself together.
Sure.
But I'd walk it. And then I went back to my room and I didn't come out for the whole rest of the day. Like, I didn't,
That's how you spend Christmas.
I didn't go to meals. I didn't do anything, because I was just like, oh my God, that was the saddest I had ever been at that point in my life. It was crazy.
Indeed.
And and I literally, I never can tell that story without being emotional, because I mean, you never forget how emotional that was at the time.
Oh yeah, that'll change you, man.
It was
Sure,
wild.
more ways than one.
Yeah.
Heck yeah,
No
that's
doubt.
cool, man. I'm sure I could talk to you all day about this right here, man. But what you do a little bit of jeeping. How many ducks do you keep in your on your dashboard?
All right, so and I let peer pressure take the best of me. So I like the whole jeeping thing. So look, they love to make fun at work. The guys that my buddies that are not Jeep people that are at the office are like, oh my god, how can I take anybody seriously? You
With
walking up and you got 50
27
Jeeps lined
ducks.
up, you got ducks lined up all on the thing. And so now I'm gonna tell you, I think it's a cool thing because what it is, and if you're not a Jeep person, people just don't understand it. And so what it is, and I don't even remember how it got started, but what it basically is somebody and then the Jeep community sees your Jeep, likes what you've done to it, and that's just saying, man, I like your Jeep,
Yeah.
thank you. And so we got into, me and Betsy bought, we go on, and we buy them by the boxes of 100. And it's all a mixture of them. I've got military ones. And I had some that I was really saving, and because that meant something to me, different people.
The cool ones. He was saving the cool ones.
So now I don't have any ducks, and I have no ducks. And to tell you a quick funny story about it is this past year. So every year, Betsy and I go with our Jeep friends, and we go to, it's a huge event called Jeep in the Coast, and it's in Long Beach, Mississippi. And you're talking thousands of Jeeps. You see Jeeps from
everything,
the 40s and 50s, all the way to Jeeps that people have $250,000 invested in. It's like you see everything.
Can you put that much money in a Jeep?
Oh, you can put as much money as you're willing to spend in a Jeep.
Are you kidding me?
We pulled up to a gas station on the way to Jeep in the Coast. I needed to get gas, and we pulled up the whole every stall is filled with Jeeps because they literally take over the Gulf Coast during that weekend. And I got to talking to this guy. We were pumping gas together and the thing, and he's got his stereo. And you look at the back and you're like, holy crap, look at this sound system. He said, yeah, he says, I and one thing led to another. And he was like, I got 30,000 invested in my stereo system. And I'm like, huh? Like, ooh, well, let me just go turn mine down because mine's stock. I don't
we'll let you play yours.
But I mean,
that's crazy.
Like it's something. But yeah, so we got into it. We're on our second Jeep now. The first time I'm always, if you know anything about me, I'm trying to get my kids and trying to get my family and trying to figure out what is something that I can, if I'm going to spend money on something, what's going to get us out of this house and go do something. And so, and I'm always trying to find something that's shared that Betsy would like, so what my wife would like. Well, everybody wants a Jeep, but I just never approached that. Well, Betsy came home one day and she was like, I've been thinking, what I think would be cool? And I was like, what's that? And she was like, what do you think if we got a Jeep? Son, you ain't got to threaten me with a good time or to buy a toy. And so
I was just waiting for an excuse.
Literally for the next 3 days, I came up and I'm scouring the internet looking for Jeeps. And so I find one in Zachary and I'm like, you said you wanted a Jeep? Well, I thought it would be cool, but wait a minute, because I was moving on it. And I was like,
touch mom.
And so this one Saturday, we took off to Zachary and we ended up, we bought a Jeep and we started it. But I'll tell you, you ask how much money can you spend on a Jeep, and you can just nod your head and go all of it. Because it's one of those things where there is no limit. It's all in what your taste is and what you're willing to do. But you can get out of hand with it. And I've gotten out of hand with both of my Jeeps until it's finally like, okay, that's it. We're done.
They've got a store for that, huh?
I'm not jacking it up anymore. I'm not going to put, but it's a cool thing because it's a real community thing. People's like, oh, but these new Broncos, they're so much better than Jeeps. Yeah, but they don't have Bronco in the Coast every year. It's right. This community. There's nobody's leaving ducks on Broncos. It's just a whole vibe and it's fun and it gets us out the house and we like to go. Now me and Betsy have fundamental differences in what she likes in Jeeping and me. I just assume take everything off of that. I don't want the doors on it. I don't want the top on it. I want it just as, in the Jeep world, they call it riding naked, and
Right.
I want to take it all off. She's more practical, and
Uh-huh.
I hate to say it, most of the time that we've done it, she's been right, because I'm like, no, I want to take all this off, and then we get to somewhere, and then a
Or
storm
sound right?
happens, and she was
Yeah.
like, what if we wouldn't have had the doors and the top on this thing?
Uh-huh.
We would have been in a jam. And I'm like,
We would have looked really cool soaking wet.
oh, but yeah, that's something that we like to do. I've
That's cool.
and like I said, we're on our second Jeep now, and we've done a lot of mods to it, and it's fun because me and Betsy have literally, she needed, it's jacked up a little bit, and she was having trouble getting in it. And so we replaced the Nerf bars that was on the side with these side rails. And you should have seen us laying up under that Jeep and using our feet and everything else to try to, and she's helping me, and we're there with the drills, and we added those side rails on ourselves. And so it's a lot of fun.
That's good. Good teamwork to make the dream work, huh?
It does.
That's cool, man.
But
Cool.
the reason I wanted to do one more thing about the Jeep real quick, and it's why I don't have any ducks anymore. Well, we went to Jeep in the Coast this past year, and we had two teenage girls that are friends of ours, daughter and granddaughter, that were that rode in the back seat. Me and Betsy's in the front seat, and I literally bought. I went on the internet and I found people who were selling Mardi Gras beads and throws and all this. But I also had our box of ducks, and in that box of ducks is my bag of the special ones that I've saved,
Yeah.
And well, we entered the parade for the first time this year. It's like the most sought after thing to be able to do is to ride in the parade. So I got my Jeep all shined up, and we take the doors. Betsy was the funniest thing in the world, because we decided we were going to take the top and the doors and all this stuff off, but we had nowhere to put it. And because it had been raining all day, and there's no way to put it at the hotel. And I was like, well, if we want to do this, how are we going to? And Betsy saw an elderly man sitting on they park you in this field at the park, and there's literally 250 Jeeps. That's how many tickets that they do for it. So there's 250 Jeeps, bumper to bumper, lined up.
So that's the parade. 250 Jeeps in the parade.
250 in the parade.
Okay.
Well, Betsy looked over at the and there's houses all along the route. Well, she looks over there, and this guy's on his porch, and she was like, "I'll be back." And she took off, and she was like, "Hey, I'll pay you if you'll let me put my doors and my topping off our Jeep in your yard." And he said, "Baby, just bring that stuff on over here." So us and all of our friends are packing all of our stuff over there.
That's
and
cool.
We ended up storing our stuff on his porch. The bad thing is that we had to, by phone light, rebuild that Jeep at about 11:30 that night, because that was the next time you could get back to that place to get it, to retrieve it all. And
that was an experiment. That's fun.
But that was fun. But the reason why we got into that parade, and we had all of our throws.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't expecting, when I'm telling you there's 10, 15,000 people at this parade, and they line this whole parade route. We threw everything that we had. Well, then the next thing I know is I'm seeing all these ducks flying, and I look back. Well, those teenage girls had taken our boxes of ducks and were just slinging them by the handful. But then we're still probably 200 yards from the end. Then we started taking the ones off our dashboard, the ones that were in the glove. Like, we threw everything that we thought somebody would want out of our Jeep. And so we got back, we had nothing.
Y'all really naked at the end of the parade, huh?
Like, we were literally reaching down on the floor to say, well, look, here's this cup from, so we threw everything that we had. So we're on the rebuild phase now. So if you ever see our Jeep, and our Jeep's name, if you've seen it at church, it's Prime's time. So
that's right.
That's what it says on our hood on both sides. And so if you see that Jeep somewhere, throw us a duck, because we're out of it.
We need a few.
Yeah, we don't have any.
That's awesome, man. So what do you think? What's the problem with people that might be holding people back in Louisiana and the South?
Man, I told you I hate getting into politics, but
do you think
man,
it's
I
politics?
tell you, with the way that society is now, and I see it in my job, I see it in society. what holds it back is if you have, there's no incentive. I mean, those of us who want to work and we've been raised to go and get educated and work and provide and get ahead in life. But if you weren't raised that way, there's ample opportunity to just to receive all the, whether it
Benefits.
be the all the benefits. I mean, you can get the um yeah, there's money, there's free health care, there's free cell phones, there's free, there's free food, there's free things that are supposed to give people a leg up.
Sure.
It seems that it has become the norm for the dependency on that, instead of just using that. And I need this to get, just till I get back on my feet.
Sure.
And it's now become a way of life for a lot of people, and I think that really holds our state down. um,
Agreed.
Everybody is so in the South is so down on taxes, and so it's hard to pass a tax. But as I think our school system does a phenomenal job, but it's the lowest. It's the lowest funded school system in the state, um, and in
In the country.
like the tri-parish area. It's
Mm.
ridiculous at how much per
Yeah.
capita is spent on our school system, because people don't want new taxes. Parish government struggles so much with keeping a 30 something year old jail afloat. And while you see these and we have a courthouse that's outdated, and our administration does a phenomenal job with seeking earmarks and seeking grants and seeking things out. But it's why you have an aged out courthouse that's 50, 60 years old. You have a jail that's 30 years old that costs more money to keep afloat than it makes, and all this. And it's because they've gone out for for taxes, and people will shoot them down because people's like, no more taxes, we pay enough taxes. Well,
Right.
if you look at that, parish governments ran off of a 1 cent sales tax. All
Mm.
of what you get, and if people really understood what all they get for that penny, it would blow their mind. So
Right.
you get shelters open during storms, you get animal control, you get a courthouse and DAs and clerk of court's office and all of parish government,
A full government.
all your roads and bridges and all the stuff that government provides for you. All that comes from tax dollars. All the freebie stuff that you get from the federal government. Hey,
Yeah.
somebody's paying. The working folks are paying those taxes. That's
Oh
what's
God,
paying
yes.
for Medicaid, and that's what's paying for welfare and WIC and all those
Yeah.
programs that people have come dependent on. Those are all. It's all on the backs of tax dollars. But then people, they don't want. They want to make sure that those things still keep coming, but
Mm-hmm.
then it's hard for us to be able to get taxes passed to be able to improve our infrastructure, like courthouses and government buildings and jails and those kind of things. And it's just tough. And so I think that's the biggest downfall in society. I don't also want to sound like the old guy. Um, I think this is a lot of what the problem is in society. Um, we talked about it today, this evening, with some of my friends. Is that back when you and I were kids, and I mean you're actually younger than I am, but
Mm-hmm.
you had to how would you put it? You had to watch your tongue.
Yeah.
Because if you were critical, you better be able to
You
back
better have a
up that
set of
you were
hands on
being
you.
critical. Versus now, now
Keyboard warrior.
kids don't have to be tough bullies. All they
Mm-mm.
have to be is
Fast.
keyboard warriors, and you can bully
Mm-hmm.
people and tell them how you can say how bad people are, and all this kind of stuff, and really don't have to back it up. Versus back when we were kids, you didn't have that. If you wanted to be critical of somebody, just know that they
Yeah.
may come back at you, and you're gonna have to be able to back that up.
And we were talking about this earlier, but those social skills, whether it be defending yourself verbally or introducing your people, it leads to all those social cues and knowing how to talk to people and having relationships with people, and just know if you talk to somebody a certain way, they probably going to want to fight. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, you know how to greet people. You need to know how to interact with people, and that's just a way of life. That's what professionalism is, and just knowing how to interact in society. And what you were saying earlier, one thing's holding people back is, that money that was meant to be a springboard or a
Mm-hmm.
crutch so people can get up and they could bounce ahead and bounce back and get back on their feet. Now people are incentivized to have single mothers and for fathers not to be in a home. And a person could, I hate to say this, pretend to be disabled or have some type of mental disorders, and they get a $800 a month check, and then they get $400 a month food stamps. And I always told everybody, dude, you couldn't. There's no way that you could keep me at the house for a $1,200 a month stipend
Mm-hmm.
from the government to keep me from enjoying freedom and be able to go provide a good life for my family.
We all say the same thing. Like during COVID, it was even. And look, uh, I was blessed, and so was my wife, in the fact that during COVID, when a lot of people weren't able to work, they couldn't go to work because
Mm-hmm.
the world was shut down.
Right.
And my job, and then my wife's job as a nurse, you know, both of us, if anything, I made overtime. We worked because we worked all the time. Betsy
Sure.
had to work the COVID clinic. She used to, it was, she used to break my heart because she used to come home, uh, you know, and she'd have the the
Black circles.
nose was rubbed raw and their ears were rubbed,
Oh
having to,
gosh.
because she's a nurse working in the
Yeah.
COVID clinic and having to put those masks on and
That's
having to
on.
do that
Sure.
all hours of the day, and that kind of thing. But and I but at the same time, there is that population, and the federal government stepped up and was able to provide that money to be able to help people live,
Mm.
that couldn't work. But now that all of that is gone, I can't. Everybody that has a business, they say, we can't find people to go to work.
Mm.
We
They got
can't
used to
find.
that
We got all these
lifestyle.
open positions, and we can't get people to go to work. And I'm like, I really don't understand. Certainly, there's not people that are comfortable living on $800 or $900 a month when you can go out and get a job. And there's all these jobs. The parish president posts all the time. This is how many jobs that are available in Tangipahoa Parish. And some of these jobs, they're from anywhere from $15 an hour to $100,000 a year jobs, and they can't fill them. And I still can't figure out, like, why are people not working? Because the incentives just aren't there to
Well,
not go to work.
whenever I got, my turnarounds got shut down in 2020, in March of 2020, April of 2020. Whenever COVID happened, I went home. I was drawing unemployment. They added another $400 on top of my unemployment. I was making $1,000 a week for unemployment. Just sit around the house and work on projects and try to figure out what the heck the government was doing over here. And the Lord blessed me and all of that stuff. And I'm over there making $4,000 a month just to do nothing. And I was just like, my buddy called me up and asked me if I want to work, and I was like, I'm not even sure if I do. Life's pretty good over here right
This is really comfortable over
now.
here.
Yeah, and I was running out of projects. I was starting to aggravate my wife a little bit, and I was like, "What you got, man?" But it's just crazy the way everything's set up, and like you were saying, like minimum wage, they were talking about, from 7.25, 7.50 or what it was before COVID. Now it's $15 an hour, and just to work at McDonald's or KFC. And these people got such a poor attitude, and they don't want to be there. And I'm just like, man, what are we doing here?
And I think that's sad in the fact that when you look at, minimum wage still is what is it, 7.25?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
minimum wage is 7.25. And I can remember, and it was the best thing ever, is when I was in high school, I can remember working at with two of my friends from high school. We worked at TGNY,
I
which
remember
was,
that.
it was the TGNY in town. And
Uh-huh.
because our friend's dad was the general manager there. And But I remember we would work every day after school, and you would work and do closing, and we would, I mean, all the menial tasks. We were cleaning commodes, and we were mopping floors, and we were checking people out. We did everything. And then you would get that check, and that check would literally be like $100, $90, you
Killing
know,
yourself for it.
and you're like, and you're thinking, man, I gotta go to school, I gotta go to work, I gotta go do something. I can't,
Uh-huh.
like I don't see how people do this, And that was the
That's
best
it.
thing is, I can tell you probably the best thing is to realize how hard people work for their money is
Mm.
hardest job I ever had. Physical labor wise was I went to work as a selector. Me and my buddy Mike Williams went to work for um,
What is a selector?
Winn-Dixie Warehouse in Hammond,
Okay.
and you were it was a selector, and it was basically what you did was you filled these orders.
Okay.
Well, they had a minimum, and I remember back then it was like I don't know 190 or 200 cases an hour that you had to load, and it was hard. It was,
Hmm.
I mean, literally, you went to work in shorts and tennis shoes and t-shirt because you got soaking wet and you basically hustled. They had these electronic pallet jacks that you held the handle to and ran next to it because as it stopped, you were grabbing them through it because they would tell you at lunchtime whether or not you were meeting your quota or you had to step it up.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
we did that job for about 6 months. And I remember thinking, man, they ought to have prisoners doing this work. This is how war slap out. And it was like $15 an hour, which $15 an hour in 1990 was a lot of money,
Absolutely it
and
was.
it was, I mean, it was good money.
Yeah.
And but we did that for about 6 months, and I remember and hated every day. And it wasn't anything. God bless. There was people who did it with ease and they did it
Yeah.
with a smile on their face. I was not that guy.
It just wasn't
And
for
it
you.
just showed me that I got to go do something better with my life because I
Right.
cannot work this hard.
It's
I cannot
it's
work this hard my whole life.
it's
I just
quality
can't
over
do it.
quantity.
But I remember when after that 6 months, we went and got in the car, and it was my turn to drive. We would take turns driving, and we got in that car, and we were, I mean, soaking wet with sweat. And I remember us just kind of slouching down in the car for a second, turning AC on, and I remember Mike looked over and he goes, "You know what? I don't think I'm coming back here anymore." And I said, "Well, me neither."
Start
we
the
just
car.
that was our last day. We left there. It was like there's got to be something more to life than this, and we left.
Yeah. I used to work with a guy at the car lot, and we used to be out there selling cars. And he used to look at me. He'd be like, "Chad, there's got to be a better way." And I was like, "Yeah, there is. There's got to
I've,
be a
I've,
better way
I've
than
even
this."
said that. So my buddy Dexter, who used to be he was the Homeland Security Emergency Management Director over in St. Tammany Parish. I learned a lot from him because he had been there a while, and he was old. Bomb squad and SWAT commander out of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office under Harry Lee.
Uh
And
huh.
we would be in the middle of the thick of something, bad from a tornado, a hurricane, and he would just sit there and he would stop and he was like, "Man, got to be a better way to make a living." No, he would always say this. There's got to be an easier way to make a living.
That's
And
right.
I'm like, yeah, you're right, but maybe we're doing some good.
That's right. Yeah. That being said, is what's your greatest sense of accomplishment?
Greatest sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Greatest sense of accomplishment is my kids, which have also been my greatest sense of pride, but also my greatest sense of worry and the whole bit. But
Yeah.
being able uh, to grow a human, to have a family, and for
Sure.
us to have made it, through all of what we've made it for, but to be able to see those little humans grow up and take on some of your characteristics. You and I shared with you in our Sunday school this past. I said, for me, I still monitor my 24-year-old's bank account,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the biggest senses of pride for me was that I looked at my son. I wanted to just check my son's finances, make sure he's not wasting money and doing stuff, and that he's putting money in savings and the whole bit because he's graduated college and has a good job.
Yep.
And to be able to see that every month his tithe check that he writes a tithe check for his out of his salary was man, that was, and I don't know if he got that from me or, I mean,
He did.
I'm a firm believer in tithe, and
Mm-hmm.
whenever they tell you, if they say I can't afford to, I say you can't afford not to, but
Right.
that the fact that we that that my sons have really grown up, and my, especially the 24-year-old now, because Caleb's still got some growing to do, but that my
Mm-hmm.
24-year-old has turned into such a good human being, and I think that's probably my greatest sense of accomplishment is my kids, and being able to watch them grow and being able to instill in them. And I know they get sick and tired of teaching moments, but
Uh-huh.
it's like even this past weekend, whenever we were doing things, it's like I was able, no, it wasn't this, it was weekend before last, and I was able to you know they can tell whenever I say I need both of y'all in here and come sit down, and they're like, what? And I'm like, teachable moment, and then you can see them both and they're like,
He said, "Roll their eyes."
like this is about to get ugly, but because they
Uh,
know that there's a reason why there's a reason behind
that's
this.
right.
There's a reason, like you didn't do what you're supposed to do, so I'm gonna tell you what you should be doing. And
Right.
I always try to equate it to where what I'm trying to tell you is going to make it better for you in school, in work, in life.
Yeah.
If you
Make your
just
life
listen to
easier.
me, my
Yeah.
job is to share with you from my pains of my past and from my successes. And I want my successes to be your successes. I want my failures to not
Yeah.
be your failures. I
Right.
want you to be I want my whole goal in life is for the two of you to be better than I ever could have been.
That's right.
But
That's a good way to be.
learn from my mistakes and
Yeah.
let me teach you, because I got, I kind of been there, done that at my point in my life, I think, and
Yeah.
I've got some lessons learned that I can share with you. You just got to be willing to listen, you know.
Well, the thing is, Dawson, we can't make all the damn mistakes by ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Somebody's already
sure.
made them. If we just listen,
I
and my
look. I've told them both at different times. I said, understand that I was a wild teenager.
yeah,
I've never tried to hide that fact from them,
that story
And I
sounds
said,
familiar. Uh huh.
but with this, no, every lie that you gonna try to tell me, I told my parents.
Yeah.
Everything that you think you're gonna sneak and try behind my back,
Yeah.
I know what that looks like, and I've done it. And
Sounds
so
very familiar.
I'm expecting, so I'm waiting for you. And so I'm watching, and I know when you're gonna do it. So know that to get over on me, it's probably not going to happen. So, it's best for you not to try. So it'd be a whole lot less painful for you.
That's awesome, man. Heck yeah.
But
Right on, man. I've been tying you up here for a little while.
man,
I really
I've
appreciate.
enjoyed it. We'd either be doing this, or I miss all them times that, we were doing it on your back porch.
Absolutely, man. I miss it too, man. We haven't gotten together for a little while, man. We need to do it.
Another.
Yeah, man. But I appreciate you coming on here and talking to me and letting everybody know what you're doing. I mean, you're a big inspiration to the community. I appreciate your time and effort. Appreciate your service out there.
I appreciate you and appreciate the influence that you have, and in my life. I appreciate you, and what you do for our church, what you do for our community. I love your family to death.
Yeah, same here.
Your wife
Feelings mutual,
Joe
man.
is, man, if you can give a plug, if you're ever around and you can go find one of Miss Joe's cheesecakes, I can tell you'll never be disappointed. You need to go hunt her down.
That's
Try to,
right. That's right.
but
Yeah.
no, but thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. No. Shout out to you, Dawson. Tell people how to find you, support you out there. Is there any groups that you're in that you want them to support? Let us know.
So I'm on Facebook. I'm Dawson Primes on Facebook. Same on Instagram. I'm on. I'm not a huge social media. I always try to just share something positive, something about pictures of my family and a whole bit. I try to stay off of it most of the time. As far as posting, but I'm always here. I'm here at the Emergency Operations Center here in Amite. If there's ever anything that I can do to help you with, if you need a liaison or need some information to help get back on your feet as far as FEMA or anything after a disaster or something, look, I'm here, and I'm always willing to help, and whatever I can do to help you, I always will.
Right
So
on, man.
look me up.
Well, this has been Prime Time. I appreciate Dawson Prime for coming on there. Appreciate you, brother. And if you're out there and you see the Jeep that says Prime's Time, go bring my boy a duck out there.
Man, put
Go
me a duck on that so we can replenish our stash.
And go support the Oyster Festival out there. Dawson on here found his higher calling. He's living in his purpose. Hope you find your calling. I thank y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
Thanks so
See you
much for
soon.
having me.